Welcome to the CFL Outsider, a short series of totally impartial hot takes, odd takes, and generally unconventional opinions on the CFL and Canadian football, with your host and presenter, Old Man Shouting at Clouds.
Hey kids, welcome back to the CFL Outsider for week 13. Forget about March Madness, it's Labor Day madness. I remain, as always, your 100% unbiased, completely impartial, and really very excited host and presenter, Old Man Shouting at Clouds. Excited? Well, not over my pick'em. I was 1-3. Thank goodness the Elk decided to win their game. Got all the rest wrong. Not excited over my fantasy either. 78.8 points for the week. Thought Drew would do better out in BC than he did. But what the heck? On all those things, it's a sprint. I still feel like I'm doing not so bad, but we'll see. Next week will be better. But what about this week? The reason I'm excited was this week of football. Man, I mean, I guess that BC-Ottawa game was a little bit of a slog to get through in the end. But the rest of the weekend, wow. And if this shows what we're going to have for the last third of the season, I'm here for it. I'm all here for it, including the chaos. And for a change, it wasn't really command center chaos. But I do have this to say about to TSN. Please, TSN. Start showing us replays of what happens when there's a penalty called. You used to do it all the time. Somebody'd get a penalty, you'd show us what happened. It seems like lately it's about 1 in 10. And I don't know if that's because the league is telling you don't show them because they don't want to be accountable. They don't want to hold the officials accountable. But I want to see them. I want to see what's happening and if the players are being stupid or if the refs are getting it wrong. So please go back to what you used to do. When there's a penalty, go back and show it to us so that we can see what's going on. Bit of a rant, but does it not drive everybody else crazy too? I don't know. Anyway, let's go on to the games themselves. Like I said, game 1 was Ottawa 12 at BC 38. Look who's back. And of course, sort of at BC because it wasn't really at BC Place. It was at the stadium in Victoria. Didn't even notice what the stadium was called. Good game though. First thing, I'm always a huge fan of effort and people that play outside their ability. And so watching 6'5", 227-pound Marco Dubois catching 5'9", 170-pound Terry Williams, a returner from behind, running him down like that, that was impressive. That was impressive. Remember during the days when I was coaching, and this was just below the high school level, so a JV level. The other team had a running back who was he was second, I believe, in the province in the 100-yard dash for his age group. We had a linebacker who at 15 was 6'1" and 215 and was responsible for everything stopped in the middle. On the one play, they ran a toss to this little running back out the side, and he went flying to the sideline, of course, beating everybody there, and I figured we're done for a touchdown, and out of nowhere, our middle backer, somehow, just on pure game speed, he gets there in time to grab the arm and take the guy down for like a 2-yard gain at the best. Pure want to, and that's what the Dubois play was. Game speed and want to. I don't care how fast you run the 40. How fast can you run on a football field? That matters to me. Anyway, yeah, so that's my story from my days of coaching. But like I said, I love that kind of effort. Now, along the coaching vein, it felt to me that Ottawa, when they were trying to make their comeback, it was a long shot. But when they were trying to make their comeback, they went down, they got the touchdown, and they immediately went for their 2-point convert, which to me was a mistake. You kick the convert. That's a much easier play. You're going to be successful. You hold the momentum that you had going into that point. When you go for the 2-pointer, it's a lot harder. You miss it, which they did, and now your momentum's taken away and your comeback just doesn't go anywhere. Give the team stuff to hope for as long as you can. And especially in that case, they were going to need at least 2 more touchdowns and a field goal in the best case scenario to tie it up. You would have had time on those other touchdowns to go for the 2-pointer. Don't do it too early. Too many people are doing that way too early. It happened in the Argo game as well, and I'll talk there. But be smart, coaches. The game changes. The score changes. Don't go chasing points on tough plays too early in the game. I shouldn't have to be teaching you that. I don't coach at your level. So if I know it's a mistake, you should know it's a mistake. What else was there? Oh, the Nathan's interview at halftime was awfully short, and everybody's losing their mind over that. Oh, he gets paid all this marketing money. Oh, all this. He was in the middle of a game. It was the first game that was working for him. Just forget about it. Just let it go. Don't worry about it too much. I will say, though, that I've been trying not to harp on the officials because it's such low-hanging fruit, and they are doing a reasonably good job, and they're much better the last few weeks. So, yeah, we're seeing good work being done. But the one thing I do think you have to be able to count on is consistency with a ref, not just within a game, but across the other games of the week and across the season, especially on plays that don't happen all that often. If you call it one way, then stick with that call for the season. And in this case, we had a situation, well, let's go back a bit. We had a situation back in week 2 or 3, I believe it was Saskatchewan playing Hamilton. CJ Rivas for Saskatchewan ended up at the end of the play lying on the field. His helmet was off. The ball got fumbled. It was lying right here beside him. He reached over, pulled it in with one hand. That's all he moved. He got penalized for illegal participation playing without a helmet. And I don't have a problem with that. That was the right call to be made in that spot. You should have made that call. But in this game, we had a spot where Stanback is running with the ball up the middle. His helmet pops off, and he keeps breaking tackles, another 2 or 3 tackles, and runs another 10 yards before he realizes the whistle's gone and he stops. Where's the penalty on that one? Got to be consistent. If it's illegal participation to have your helmet off, it's illegal participation to have your helmet off. Make the calls. Don't drive us crazy by just going at the whim of what you feel like. And as long as I'm bitching about stuff, I will say this. If TSN is going to do another game out of Victoria, if there's another touchdown Pacific, TSN better rent themselves a bit more bandwidth, because there were times when it was painful. The broadcast of that game breaking up and just not good. One thing Ottawa did do well, I thought, was a fake punt. I mean, they'd obviously seen something in BC that allowed them to make that throw that had been obvious that was called, and the timing of it was great. If they'd had a chance to get back in the game, that would have been part of it. That really gave them a bit of a boost, and it was well timed. But unfortunately, by then, they were just a little too far gone. And again, maybe this is complaining about the officials, but they mentioned it in the game, and I think it even kind of got praised as a good play by the receiver. But I'm talking about the Hollands touchdown that BC got. I'm not even sure whereabouts it was. I think it's still within the first or second anyway. But they were close to the end zone. He ran a crosser down the end zone. There was an obvious pick on the man covering him and not called at all. I mean, basically, well, yes, he didn't run into the defender. He ran up and stood in front of him, so there was nowhere for him to go. That's as much of a pick as anything. I think that should have been called. It took a lot of stamina to watch the whole 60 minutes of this game. It was a bit tough once it got to be the bit of the blowout with it, you know. And including at the end, I didn't quite get why Ottawa decided, with under a minute left, they're down by the chunk, whatever did I say that it ended up there, 38-12. So they take a timeout. Okay, so maybe you're going to try and put some more points up on the board for whatever, for morale or something. But they take the timeout, and then they run 3 running plays that goes nowhere. Why did we bother extending that game by the minute? I don't know. I don't think so. It should have been done. Don't mind a little bit of yips and howls in the background, by the way. The beasts apparently appear to be a little restless tonight. Game 2 Winnipeg 35 at Saskatchewan 33. What is the record for the most unusual ways to lose a game in one season? Okay, gonna start out complaining again, even though it's a bit of praise. In the pregame show, TSN played a montage of plays from previous Labor Day Classics. It was very good. And there was a song on there that was a football song. It got me pumped up. It seemed to be, the lyrics were, "You can't outrun the fire." I don't know if that's the name, because I tried to use my Shazam thing to tell me the name and the artist and song, and it wouldn't recognize it. But it was a good, hard football song. Hard driving beat, really went with the stuff. I thought, yes, that's it. Thank you, TSN. That's what football music is like. And then we got to the start of the game, and they play their opening intro in there, and it's this lame something or other, "She Likes Sports" by Almost Monday. It's not football. It's not football. Come on, TSN. You're not doing synchronized swimming here. You're doing football. Let's start playing music that's appropriate for football. Okay. I will say, though, as far as TSN goes, Lapo gets better at doing the color every game he does. He started out, I thought he knew the game very well, and he points out a lot of stuff, which is good to see. But his delivery was a little dry and hard to take. He's learning and getting better and getting more comfortable with it, and I think he's going to be one of the better ones. There was also a tribute to Ken Miller at the start of this game, and I loved that. I'm a huge fan of Ken Miller. He coached the way that you should. He wasn't a yeller and a screamer. He wasn't thinking that he had to embarrass people to get them to do the job. He coached men, as he used to say, and he coached the men with respect. And he was just, I can see why they say players would run through walls for him. Probably literally. He was so impressive with it. And as much as I did enjoy the tribute, and he deserves the honor and everything, I gotta say, it also, part of what made me happy was to see the clip where they had him doing the speech before a pregame speech in the locker room. And the best part of that was watching Gene Mikowski sort of just pacing in the background, back and forth, getting his game face on. And that felt good to see after these years. There was a hell of a lineman. On the downside, Emlis is still fighting the ball. I mean, he's making the catches, but they're not clean. He's catching them on double clutches, or it just looks like he's still struggling with it. So I hope they can get that together. They need to start putting things together in this last 6 games. Of course, they do have the bright spot of Dante Myers with his touchdown. It's nice to see he got that for me in fantasy. And I do want to know, if anyone knows Dante out there, please let me know. Ask him, let me know. What's the story of Skeleton Bear? I want to know that. Having the crowd sing the national anthem, I thought was so well done. They started a bit slow, but I had goosebumps by the end of just them, how they were going with it and whatnot. They've also been taking a lot of penalties. When I say they, the Riders have been taking a lot of penalties on kick returns. 2 weeks in a row where it's really hurt them bad when they needed a better position. I mean, there was 2 weeks ago at the game in Toronto where late in the game on the kick they gave up a holding, and instead of getting the ball out to the 40, they had it on the 10 and couldn't close it out and ended up giving away that walk-off rouge. This week they had problems with it. They really have to fix that up. And they also, I mean, it was frustrating. How many different ways can you find to lose a game? This week they were playing reasonably well. They were getting back in it. Korsak's been punting extremely well all game. He's been pinning them deep. He's doing everything right. And then with under 3 minutes left and they need to get a stop, they can't afford to give Winnipeg any more points, he puts a punt straight down the middle. It ends up coming down on the hash marks, and Whitehead takes his longest return of the game up 30-some yards, puts Winnipeg in position to kick a field goal that eventually wins it. This game, between the touchdown and the missed 2-point convert and recovering the onside kick and getting the pass interference penalty and then almost making that field goal, was the second time that it's happened to me. And in the middle of all that, and suddenly I get a little beep beep buzz warning from my Fitbit, and it says, "Warning, Your heart rate appears to be unusually high. Go figure. Okay, and that takes us to game 3. Toronto 28 at Hamilton 31. Best backup in the league. You know, we all make mistakes sometimes. We say the wrong thing. We're thinking one thing, we say another thing. The older I get, the more that it happens. I get that. Normally, when we do something like that, we can just sort of hopefully slough it off, not hope nobody noticed, just sort of go on with it. Fortunately, when your job is talking on national television, it's kind of hard for things to just slip by. People notice them, and idiots like me bring it up and say, you know, hey, Davis, on the panel, you're usually pretty good with the picks, but what's the idea of picking an Edmonton quarterback to score a touchdown in a Hamilton-Toronto game? Not quite sure. Out a little late last night, maybe? Yeah. I mean, you were all the way out to Victoria. Maybe there was some partying there. Thought it was interesting to see that Janarian Grant has now got his dreads taped up in one big column at the back. I guess you can still grab that, but if one gets ripped out, I guess they all go out now. Hopefully it's a bit better for him. I thought Coach Dinwiddie was probably maybe a little overhyped at the start of the game, the same way players can. That interception, he had the challenge flag out almost before the whistle went. And I know he was standing right there, but that's why you play the spotters. What you see isn't necessarily what's going to be on camera. And so take a moment to see if it's caught something that's actually challengeable. And from everything I saw, they got the call right on that. There should not have been any pass interference penalty. It should have been an interception, and it was. And even when that happened, and through most of the game, like Argos fought back in this game a bit, but it just felt to me like it was a home field advantage Labor Day thing for the Ticats. They were not going to lose that. They had a real jump in their step, and the Argos didn't. They looked like they were running in mud. They were just slower. And why were they wearing their home blues? You know, why that kit? Shouldn't they have had the whites on the road? I don't know what the rules are, but I much prefer to see one of the teams in a white. Anyway, that's just me. I also wonder if having a kicker named Legio can be considered nominative determinism. I think maybe. There was a point early in the second quarter, where Hawley from Toronto came through and got a sack on Bo that I don't know how it did not get a roughing the passer call. His arm was wrapped around Bo's head at the top from back to front. If that's not contacting the head, I don't know what is. Dinwiddie, of course, as I said with the Ottawa game, Dinwiddie did it too. Went for a 2-point convert way too early, snuffed out some momentum they had. Mind you, I don't know how much I mean, yes, they got back to within 3 points, wasn't it? I think something like that, yeah. But it just didn't look good. The Toronto quarterback looked rattled most of the night, not sure. And I mean, not surprisingly, given what we know about him, there was one where he got a perfectly legal sack to the chest, and he's lying there sitting on the ground, whining to the refs, trying to somehow say that they hit his head when it was nowhere near it. Oh, well. And, you know, as the game went on and the Argos started coming back, Bo did fall off a bit. He did revert to what we've seen earlier this season, where the game is close and he starts underthrowing or overthrowing people. He just seemed to lose concentration a bit. And then, in this case, luckily for them, and, well, maybe not luckily, good for them anyway, and good for him, he came back and made that one last touchdown throw that really redeemed himself and basically gave them the game. I've also was wondering, you know, they didn't normally in these games they show us a lot of what the fans have brought for signage. You know, one thing or another, usually saying TSN on it somewhere. We didn't see any of that. Given the situation, is it maybe that none of them were family friendly enough for primetime television? I know from the bits of chance I was hearing, it seemed like the Ticats fans were making a point of how they felt about the quarterback on Toronto there, so maybe the signs were even rougher. Jordan Murray's not a very good tackle. Sorry, just got to say that the more I watch him. And, I was going to say, as far as Bo goes, those 3 touchdowns, well, 2 that he got passes and then set up the running one in the first quarter. That was impressive, being up 3 touchdowns by the end of the first quarter. And that second pass that he threw to Tim White, that went over 50 yards in the air. So I'm guessing that means that we definitely know the shoulder's all healed up and everything's good now. I think so. And then my favorite moment of the whole game was probably right at the end. They had Tui's little brother out there trying to run the ball and run out the game, and the camera cut to Bo. This is just after he throws that touchdown pass to win the game for them. And he just glances at the camera and goes, "Best backup in the league." And you're right, Bo, you are. I don't know. This is another one. Probably when Powell comes back, they'll go back to him, but it's hard to understand. And that takes us to the last one, Game 4, Edmonton 35 at Calgary 20. Hold my beer. I don't want to take anything away from what was an excellent, a great, tremendous performance by the Elk. They played a very impressive game and earned that win completely. And it was just one of those games too. Some games you know you're going to win no matter what. It's the football gods are smiling on you. It's just there. I mean, when you think about it, they played well enough to be up by a reasonable amount and that. And if they hadn't, midway through the fourth quarter, got that pass where MBT threw into triple coverage and somehow threaded it through to Lewis, and then had Lewis fumble, which basically turned almost into a lateral to Jones, who ran it another 70 yards down the sideline for a 104-yard play, 1 yard out of the end zone, and they go in for the touchdown next. They might have won without that, but it helped. And on the next series, they might have won without the ball that got bounced and tipped around 3 or 4 times, and one of the defenders managed to grab it and intercept it. But it helps again with that. There are games when you know that the football gods are smiling on you, and they certainly were in that game for the Elk. And in fact, Jones, on that long run, he probably would have scored a touchdown, except he was almost down to a walk by the time he got to the end of the 104 yards. So maybe a few more wind sprints during the week for Tavon. I thought again, Paredes was made, I forget even how many field goals he made. I think he made a couple of them anyway. But that one that was 55, 57 yards, he doesn't normally look nervous before a kick, but he looked a little unsure before that one. And of course there was no reason for it because he was straight down the middle from any distance again, but at least it challenged him. You can tell that. Oh dear, what else can we talk about? Early first, second, third play long pass made me realize obviously that the Stamps receivers don't practice the mine call. It's mine, get out of the way, it's mine, I got it. Might have been helpful. Because the Elk did outplay them for the whole game really, but through that first quarter and the start of the second, they outplayed them, but they just couldn't finish. It was kind of Rouge-a-Palooza. They got three different single points and a field goal for a 6-point lead, and then they started building on from there. There was a chance for Calgary to come back in it, but they could never put it together. And I think I said last week that Glenn Suits has been doing a better job of calling the games, and he hasn't been as repetitive, and it's much more entertaining, and it is still. But I think sometimes he gets a point to make, and he's looking for a chance to just shoehorn it in there, get it in right where he wants. Because this one I noticed he was talking about the linebackers and how good they are, and he highlighted a play by Morgan. I'm not even sure of Morgan's first name from the Elk, come to think of it. But anyway, middle linebacker highlighted a play where there was a run up the middle. He slid over, got himself right in the hole to take on the running back, and it was a beautiful play. Except he got in the hole, and put his arms up like this and tried to smack him in the chest, which let the running back twist and spin off of him and get another about 3 yards before he was down. So it turned a 1 yard run into a 4 yard and second and medium. So that's not the right play to highlight a linebacker on Mr. Suter. Highlight one where he wraps up and drives him back through that hole and actually plays the game the way it should be. I am a bit of a snarky, bitchy old man, aren't I, this week? But I just want to see it done right. We know Labor Day is always, they always talk about the physicality of Labor Day. It's going to be a physical game. It's going to be rough and tumble, and yes, and the hits are always harder, and there's quite the contests that are put together. The pounding was so much that for this game, even the TSN camera couldn't take it. And they had the poor spider cam just give out and whimper on its tether. I do think, especially the one run in this game, made me realize that, for a guy who's basically a speed guy, Leak runs very hard when he needs to. I also thought Dustin Nielsen, as the play-by-play man, missed a chance for a great line, because there was a point where games in Calgary, I think Edmonton was like 2nd and 27 or something like that. To me, it was an obvious time for a line of, they're about at 1st and Commonwealth. Never took it. I don't know. I thought it would have been good. There was also, I had trouble figuring out what was going on with Jake Meyer during this game. In his halftime interview, it wasn't even the cliches. He basically, if you listen to what he said, he basically said, if we could play better, we'd be winning. Which makes sense, but... And then there was one point after, I don't even know if it was the first or second or third or fourth interception, I can't remember. But there was one point where he threw the interception and the camera's on him and he just kind of shrugs like, who knows how that happened? I would think you should know. Let's see, what else do we have? Good to see Derek Moncrief back in form. The last part of last year with the Riders, he really seemed to have lost a step and wasn't playing very well. And I thought the career was over with. When the Elks signed him, I thought, again, you're grasping for straws. But he has gone in there and played really well. He solidified that linebacking core for them, and it's good to see. Any other thoughts that I have on this? Hurdling a tackler. If you're one of those running backs or receivers where you go out and somebody tries to take you low and you hurdle them, that looks very good and it gets the fans pumped up. But it's a dangerous thing to get 1 more yard. So unless you're hurdling and see open field ahead of you, I'd just take the hit. Makes more sense. Far easier to survive the contact. I thought MBT had a very classy kind of interview at the end of the game. He was talking about sort of how good it feels to win, and you got to appreciate the wins, and about the dynamic between him and Trey and all. And I thought he came out very well. I was impressed by that. Yes. And I also thought, and this is why my title for this game, it really felt to me they were in charge. They once they got into the second quarter, they were putting things in. They had it under the wraps. They were doing it. They were just marching along and getting it done. And then all of a sudden, Peyton Logan bursts that one late in the game for 103, 104 yard punt return for a touchdown or something. And the way it turned out, I've just got this picture in my head of the Elk sideline and MBT going to Jerry Jackson. Okay, hold my beer. Didn't take them long to put the lead back where it was. Well, I guess that's about all I got talking the game. So what else? Oh yeah, my gambling advice seems to be a popular part of the podcast. So again, if you're looking at gambling on this week's games, at any of the spreads aren't all that long. They're, I think, 1.5 in all of them except the Montreal game. And there's sure to be some prop bets up there that some of you might be tempted for in that. So if you're thinking about gambling this week, don't. All right, extra points. I don't know how to make this happen, but please, TSN, everybody talk to TSN about this. Give us some way to see the all 24 of you, either as a picture-in-picture down at the bottom or put it on TSN. And I know that a lot of people seem to like this TSN Plus now with the showing the routes and the speeds and all the rest of that stuff. I just find it loud and confusing and ridiculous. But if you're going to charge people for that, charge extra for TSN Plus for them to do that. Use another version of the TSN Plus and just give us something where we can, at will, switch back and forth between the broadcast and the all 24. Because frankly, there's a lot of very good defenses out there this year, from what I'm told. But since I can't get to all the games in person, I can't see it. Unless they give us the occasional all 24 replay, I have no idea how these defenses are shutting down the offenses the way they are. Are they really that tight in coverage? Are the quarterbacks missing people that are open? The only way that I can tell that is with an all 24. And I know it can be a boring type look, so most of your fans, and especially your casual ones, aren't going to want to watch it too much. But there is a market for people that know the football really well and want that all 24. And please, TSN, find a way to make it available to us. Now, on another thought, the CFL, the season doesn't really start till after Labor Day. That's conventional wisdom, and there's some truth to it, or there has been in the past. But I'd like to point out to everybody, that's been around, that thought, that saying, long enough that back in the day when they started, Labor Day was week 9. Your season was half over. You had half a season to go, and a lot of things changed in the cold weather and all of that, yes. Now, Labor Day, we're at week, 13, 14. Almost everybody's played 12 games. There's a third of the season left. So maybe we shouldn't be saying the season starts at Labor Day. It might get more interesting at Labor Day, but I think these days it starts earlier. What else can we talk about? Apparently there was a fight at Mosaic Stadium. I know, because lots of people seem to be ranting about it one way or the other. My input on it, drunken idiots. They will be. Don't encourage them by talking about it. Don't publicize it. And here's a thought. If Trey is healthy next week, do they start him? I mean, look at what MBT did over the last couple of games. His game has been very good. The defense has picked up their game. He looks good. Normally, you probably wouldn't interrupt that kind of a winning streak. But what's going on here is you've also got the future to think about. Trey is a free agent at the end of this season. If he is your future, because I don't think MBT is more than a 1 or 2 year guy. So if Trey's your future, you want to keep him happy. And maybe that means playing him now. Do what you can with, the rest of the season. You've got a real shot at the playoffs, but try and get there with Trey and make him happy enough to be back and have a good season next year. And speaking of that, they've got a shot at the playoffs. Wow. There's basically 2 games, 4 points between first place and last place in the West right now. Calgary and Edmonton both have 4 wins. Saskatchewan 5 and a tie. BC and Winnipeg 6. Can't get much tighter than that. And on top of that, of the 29 games that are remaining, only 8 of them have crossovers with interdivision. So that means there's going to be a bunch of west-on-west violence in the cold weather, in people scrambling and biting and clawing and tooth and nail to get themselves into the playoffs and get a chance to keep going on. It may very well work out that the Western representative in the Grey Cup is whatever team can still dress 43 bodies that can crawl out onto the field. It's going to be a wild finish, and I am here for it. Bring on the chaos. Oh, it's going to be so much fun. Well, anyway, that's about it for this week. That's all that I've got. If you've enjoyed it, please subscribe. Make sure you get these back. When you subscribe, you'll also get the access to my 2 shorter shows. Old Man Plays CFL Fantasy and Old Man Plays CFL Pick'em in under a minute. That's helped some people out in some ways. You might want to see that too. So please, it's also helping me out. And I know this is the big portion of things, but please share it with anybody that you know who might like it. Subscribe to it. Leave comments. Not getting nearly enough comments. I want more. Please let me know. Do you like what I'm doing? Do you not like what I'm doing? Where should I be doing more of? What should I be doing less of? Help me out with that. That's all of you. Help me. And we'll all work together to try and appease the almighty algorithm and get some more people watching this channel and enjoying what we're talking about. Because the remarks I've got so far are all seem pretty positive. There seem to be a bunch of you that are enjoying this, and I'd like to get more people on board. And I'm having a whale of a time doing this. So that's about it. Hopefully there's another good week of football for us to talk about next weekend. And until next week, get the hell off my lawn. They are finding new and interesting ways to lose games. I hope they turn it around for them and the fans' sakes.